powerful metaphor is simply one that gets pretty close to the divine archetype.
Yeah.
So it's a metaphor is just another word. Mm-hmm. I guess, I mean, there are different definitions. I guess one of them is that the things that are put together in such a way that their meaning is elevated beyond beyond their own nature. Mm-hmm. Like, I think the meaning of a really good painting even goes beyond its arrived at structural composition. You know, you don't just look at a painting and say it's well done or the composition is beautiful. In fact, in a really good work, you should be unaware of how the work was created. Like, if you can count on your hands the decisions, here you are standing in front of a work of art, right, and you're saying, oh yeah, this was done and that was done and this is how this was done and so on. The work is probably not very powerful as a metaphor.
Yes.
But if it's a powerful metaphor, it transcends its own making. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It transcends its own limitations.
Yeah.
That's what's nice about prayer, because in the state of prayer, you literally transcend your own limitation. Because your own limitations are very profound.
So this idea of a horizon is kind of interesting. It's a marking in the painting for me, and it reads as a horizon line to a lot of people, but it isn't really a horizon line for me. It's a marking for a threshold, and it's a threshold between one reality and another reality. It's the line between land and sky, but it actually doesn't really exist in nature, a horizon line. You can spend your entire life trying to reach that horizon line. You will never reach it because it doesn't really exist. So we've created this line, which is a horizon line, as a marking for a reality that doesn't even exist. So it's a lot of fun to play with that line, because it's a metaphor for a liminal reality, is what it really is in my paintings. I think it's fair to say that. So I play with the line itself is there. By the way, I have not tried to put these things in the work. When I say that this notion of this line, I recognize that in the work. And I was curious about that, because your own work is your best teacher, and you're viewing it as a separate person as well. You're doing it, but you're also learning from it, and you're viewing it as a viewer. So I started to see these little white slivers coming, and I knew that I had put that in there because I thought that's an interesting idea of light. And it's very different than anything else I'm doing. But then I started to think about it as an opening, or as a sliver that was going through. I mean, already expressing a horizon line already gives you this sense of infinite space. But then to put this sliver of light in there, which is another opening, is a really interesting idea, that you can go even deeper. So just as you thought you couldn't penetrate something even more, all of a sudden you can penetrate it even more. And there could be a sliver beyond that sliver, which is our spiritual reality. There are many worlds of God, and we know that and we feel it, but we don't like to talk about it, and it's very difficult to express. But I think we all have that sense that there are many worlds of God. So if I can suggest that in any way in my paintings for the purpose of contemplation, then I think that's fun. Contemplation for me and contemplation for the viewer.
So if the purpose of this life is to develop our spiritual capacity, our spiritual eyes and our spiritual ears, why are we in a physical dimension? And it's because in a physical dimension, in order to recognize the spiritual significance, we have to understand the language of allegory and metaphor. That is art. So ultimately, art is like a vehicle for understanding the reality of our existence. It's because it's the vehicle and the vocabulary of metaphor. So when we combine that understanding of our own experience through the lens of understanding and insight and wisdom, our own experience through the lens of metaphor, then we're richer for it. And art can provide a lot of those tools. Even the revelation in many ways is a symbolic structure. It's language built upon this kind of architecture of forms that as humans we can study. Like we can look at the revelation with the eyes of of poets and of architects and of painters. So I think it's a tool for understanding this relationship, but it's an essential tool. So without it, if we don't understand the language of metaphor, we also can't understand this physical reality. We are illiterate to the physical, the spiritual within the physical framework. And that illiteracy has consequences. And it makes us very vulnerable to materialism and to all sorts of pathologies, because we haven't developed a robust sense of our own metaphorical journey, So art, I absolutely believe, is an essential tool in that journey. But I think for the most part, literally 99% of the people are not really versed in that language. So as Baha'is, I think it's very important that we give credence and develop, like when we're teaching children and we're developing in our Baha'i communities, that we give real weight to that metaphorical structure of reality. Really think about what things mean on not just on a surface level, but on a symbolic and on a metaphorical level. That passage where Baha'u'llah says every atom is a door leading unto the knowledge of God. And it goes on, every blade of grass. I mean, if that's really true, then I think one of the vehicles for exploring that is obviously science, and it's also art. That those are the tools that we use to explore that metaphorical reality.
To experience this dance between the tangible and the intangible is something that's almost self-evident. And why are we living in a world that is so material, and yet everything that we aspire to is in a world that is not material? And this idea of why do we have to go from this to that is very interesting. And I think that the idea that you constantly, as you're working with the material, you catch a glimpse, you catch a taste, you catch a little, it's like a little tease, right? You see the way the leaves move on the tree with the breeze, and you feel that breeze has a relationship to something that is completely a metaphor for the intangible, which we know. And so this idea that there's a constant intertwining between the tangible or the measurable and the immeasurable or the intangible, and this idea that the two worlds are constantly somehow influencing each other is something that I think art allows us to do. And so when you get lucky that what you've done is somehow touch that. It's somehow it's catching a glimpse of that. And then you really get happy when the security guard rubs his hand against the concrete and you feel like someone else is getting it too without you having to explain anything. Right?
These were cracks inside here, and then it comes back to a ring after. So this piece would have started off perfectly symmetrical and round, and the tension within the form has pulled it out of shape and created these lines. This is a particularly subtle one, so we don't see the cracks too much, as opposed to this one over here. We see the cracks really raw. Here I've left the cracks raw and open, so that one's not going to ping. But I have been filling them with clay and glaze and refiring them and reworking them for them to get their ring back. So it is a bit of a metaphor for healing. This bowl in particular would have had raw open cracks, and so I've just been filling it in, and so that's called a healing bowl for me.
Finding the music again is just very powerful, powerful image.
I just really have one more question.
Okay.
And it's a quote from Alice Walker. It's become my favorite quote. Art is the mirror, perhaps the only one in which we can see our true collective face. We must honor its sacred function. We must let art help us.
Ooh.
Have any response to that?
Wow. Beautiful quote.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's similar to dreams. Dreams tell us things that we don't understand what the symbolism is, but for some reason our spirit is compelled to bring a symbol forward. And I think art, you do it because you feel like, I often say, I have to paint it. I can't not paint it. And you don't know why, but sometimes it's telling, even the artist doesn't know why. But it's telling our spirit something. I really think the teachings of Baha'u'llah are very deep. It's like looking into the wave. They're very deep concepts. You really have to penetrate into them. And visual arts, theatrical arts, music, it helps the concept kind of get inside so that it's not just an understanding, it's a gut knowing. I don't know how else to describe it, but I find that I hear writings or put to music, and then I just can so visualize a theater performance to make it even more clear and help us to really get the feeling more deeply, the power. There's so much power in these beautiful writings that they can just kind of go by on the top of your mind and you don't get to sort of penetrate into them. But I think the arts really make them much more real for us.
Well, I think that, art itself is a very individual expression of our own self, of the deeper vision of self. And in that sense, it's not the influence of religion on you. I mean, revelation is actually at the source, is the same as the source of our being. It's not something independent in the sense of a formula or something that you adopt and act through. It's something that reveals to the nature of your own consciousness, as that's the way I understand it. And so the revelation is you in different stages of development, and of course the revelation is infinite and endless in its aspects and has a number of practical social aspects as well. But the more metaphysical dimensions of it play in consciousness and dance and wed each other, and it's just that. And so the shapes that are coming out, in a sense, are like almost pre-material. They're the shape of archetypal forces, maybe the implications of, one would like to believe, of the names and attributes of God that are shining in human consciousness.
¿Sabes, Kim? Creo que el arte en general,
Kim, I believe that art in general is a profound revelation of the spiritual realm in the physical world.
la música es un vehículo,
Music is a vehicle,
pero ninguno de ellos
and as such it can follow many roads,
para poner en contacto
and none of them
el
is as
espíritu de
pure
la
and
naturaleza
noble
divina.
to put in contact the human spirit with the
Creo que
divine
el
essence.
objetivo principal, hay mucho.
And I believe that the main goal, and there may be many goals, but the main goal of an artist is to create and produce emotions.
La música
I believe that is the work of the artist. The music is not visible, but you feel it deeply in your soul. Many times in the concerts, I can see people crying because the music connects them perhaps with aspects of their own lives. I believe that music has that power.
y tiene el poder y la capacidad.
Has the power, the capacity to make men transcend. Music makes us transcend.
And I just felt moved to start doing these abstract paintings. And all of them had what I call this inner light. Every one of them had that inner light in them. And I did over 1,000 of those paintings. And I know I did that many because each painting on the back is numbered from number 1. But I was interested in this sort of the spiritual quality of artwork, especially at that time. When it comes to seeing and art, being an artist requires several things, and one is the ability to be able to see things clearly in a way that maybe other people don't see them. Painting is not really so much about putting the brush to the canvas. It's not about painting, it's really about seeing.
Creating art is a very vulnerable process, and that process needs to be honored no matter how it sounds or how it looks. And to young artists, I say, work on your craft and get good at it, pursue excellence in that craft, and work on accompanying other people in your community to do the same. But I think to back to the community, I think creating spaces where it's not, where there's room for a creative contribution. I think we go into these places where it's like very prescribed and kind of curated, and I think that doesn't leave a lot of room for vulnerability and for like a creative contribution, unless it's like curated and planned in that space. So I think, allowing room and allowing space for that creativity to come from a devotional gathering, or from a holy day, or from a feast, or a community gathering. You've created a space, now leave some room for those who are creative or are inspired to contribute.
I want to be able to do pieces that can tell stories, that can hold its moment in time, as well as ascend past that, and have those stories there for future generations. As an African American, there's so many different stories that are not really being documented by the visual artists the way that I think that they could be. There's lots of tragedy, there's lots of triumph, there's lots of advancements being made, there's lots of setbacks still here. As a sculptor, I want to be that hollow reed for that society, that culture, that time frame of people to be able to breathe through and look at, wow, that's who we were at that time. We've come a long way. Or I can see that that could be us. The way that guy did that piece, I like to see us in that light.
So because I believe that when we do creative things, we engage the spirit, I do know that there's something that's very healing about that. And even science have said that meditation, prayer, and creating artwork all have the same impact on your body physically. Just like when you feel certain things, it's really made up of all these chemical reactions in your body. Well, it's the same thing when you're creating art and meditating. It has that healing, it all has that same effect on our bodies. It's a wonderful tool to use with clients of every age, young, old, and I've watched how clients would do some really deep, powerful work using the arts, and yet they're not burdened with it. So to me, there's that's going on as well. Both of those are going on. It has a healing effect, and you're really going deep into the psyche as you do that. So I love doing that with people of all ages, even simple things where you do guided meditations to just really, I don't know, really uncover some things or look for a healing symbol that you can reflect on as you're going through different challenges. You know, there's a whole range of techniques really that's been used, and I think it's a powerful way of using the arts.